As journalism at the end of the day, and we're not here to serve any masters. Our masters are our audience.
We're here to talk about things in a way that have never been broadcast on British Airways before.
Do not miss a moment on GB News.
The #1 news channel in the country.
Very good evening, very good morning to you in the UK, live from Washington DC. This is the Late Show Live, GB News, with the stories shaping Britain and America.
But I think they should keep it. I don't know why they're doing it. Do they need money?
An act of great stupidity. President Trump did not hold back. He called Labour's Chagos surrender deal the wrong decision. Well, just moments ago in the White House press briefing room, I was there, President Trump doubled down on his opposition to it. So was it GB News that sparked that outburst on social media?
I don't understand why America has not been more forthright in saying this is a bad idea.
I don't know that the president has spoken directly to the issue or as forcefully enough to your point, but I would assume that he shares the same concern as you and I do about that.
Insiders are saying that interview yesterday on GB News with Nigel Farage, talking to Speaker Johnson, sparked the president to intervene. That's right, GB News may just have caused an international diplomatic row. And in another GB News exclusive tonight, I'm going to reveal what the Trump administration really think about Britain giving the Chinese embassy the go-ahead. I've been given exclusive briefing from the White House, and they are not happy. Also tonight.
How far are you willing to go to acquire Greenland?
You'll find out.
You'll find out. That was Donald Trump's cryptic message to Greenland as when he was asked what lengths he'd go to acquire the country. Do you dread to think what that may be? Also tonight. One year of President Trump, whether you like him or hate him, he's kept the news media busy. I've got two huge guests tonight, the White House Deputy Communications Director and a member of the State Department, plus a special envoy to the President as well, there's three of them in fact. The monumental moment calls for monumental guests. Stay with me, it's going to be a cracking show. I am Bev Turner. This is The Late Show Live. Love to hear from you as well, of course. gbnews.com/your say. We've got some massive stories to get our teeth sunk into tonight. We're going to talk about that incredible social media post by President Trump that has shaken Sir Keir Starmer and his government. The president calling the Chagos surrender an act of stupidity. We're going to get into that in just a moment. I'm going to have Niall Gardner with me on that. He, of course, has been a fierce campaigner on that issue. I'm going to also reveal how GB News may have caused an international diplomatic row. I've got some exclusive information on the Trump administration's thoughts on the British government approving that Chinese mega embassy. Let's just say, all in all, it's not been a great day for Keir Starmer. First of all, though, let's talk about Donald Trump and his first year. I was there today in the White House briefing room when he celebrated his achievements, but he was mainly asked about his next steps on Greenland. And this is what he said.
I think something's going to happen that's going to be very good for everybody. I think that we will work something out where NATO is going to be very happy and where we're going to be very happy. But we need it for security purposes. We need it for national security and even world security. It's very important. How about it?
He spoke for an hour and 45 minutes today, but it was this exchange that caught the eye of the world's press.
How far are you willing to go to acquire Greenland?
You'll find out.
Caelan Dorr, White House Deputy Communications Director, joins me now. I'm delighted to say, Caelan, great to see you.
Well, it's great to see you.
So, when he says you'll have to wait and see, basically with Greenland, what do we think he means? It was quite cryptic.
Well, I think on this issue in particular, there's one three-word phrase that I feel like I repeat to myself time after time after time this year, and that is trust in Trump. The man has got very good reasons for doing this. It makes sense both internationally and so on and so forth for national security reasons to go forth and handle this acquisition. And he's going to go do it. It's been 10 years now. We've been doing the same thing for 10 years. The president says he's going to do something. People say, oh my goodness, is he really going to do it? And then he does it, and the outrage machine lives on. And it's what kills me about this press conference today is a lot of people are talking about this Greenland issue, right? But the president went out there to hold mug shots up of pedophiles, sex offenders, terrorists, etc. that we're arresting in Minneapolis and Minnesota, and none of them are covering that. None of the media that were there in the room with you today have run with the ball on that one. And so that is what truly is so funny to me, is that I feel like a broken record. Every time we do something like this, whether it's tariffs, it shouldn't be groundbreaking that a guy says he's going to do something and does it, and the world seems to be falling apart. So
just for people who didn't see the press conference, because it was quite an unusual start to the briefing. Well, it was unusual because it was the president anyway. It wasn't Caroline Leavitt. That took a few of us slightly by surprise, and it was announced just a few moments before. The logic behind that was what? Because it's been 1 year in office.
Yeah, he walked up to the podium and kind of threw his papers to the side.
Yeah.
But he had 365 accomplishments for 365 days in office, prepped, ready to go to read through. He had mug shots of those that we were arresting in Minnesota, because that is a very controversial issue at the moment. For some reason, it shouldn't be controversial that we want to lock up pedophiles and rapists and drug dealers and so on and so forth. And I think he took matters into his own hands today and wanted to drive the news. I think he's done it. I don't know if you guys have you covered it today?
Well, we're covering it now with you. But that's what's so interesting, I suppose, because his decisions are international. And I imagine he finds some frustration in that, because #AmericaFirst, and you are one of the men behind his social media. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But he wants to put the needs of this country first. But it's like he can't do that until he fixes these big international issues, because he's so focused on national security. But it feels like the rest of the world are not listening to him on his logic, for instance, on Venezuela and on Greenland. Yeah. They're not listening to his logic and his rationale about it being about national security, but also security for the West in general. And that must be frustrating for you.
Well, I think what's funny is a lot of people they get the president wrong on this one thing, and they don't see that he's not a political monster. I mean, obviously he is. He's the best who's ever done it, but he's pragmatic, and he just wants to get things done. And it's like I said, if he says he's going to do it, he's going to do everything he can to get it done as soon as possible, ahead of time and under budget. And there are countless instances of him doing this. So for folks to he's not, I don't think, frustrated. I think we're going to get it done. We're going to knock it out. But there's a lot of things. The guy can walk and chew gum at the same time, like the best of them, and that's what he's doing here.
So opening the presser today with laminated sheets, and he showed many of them, of people that ICE, so just for the British audience, these are the Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers. They are demonized in the press, as you say, all across the world. These are the bad guys. These are Trump's Star Wars figures that he's put out on the streets of America, is how they're depicted in the press. And standing there and showing the types of people who are being eliminated from this country was designed to do what in the mind of the president?
Well, I think it's designed to make the media realize that they're defending the indefensible. And this is something that, again, has come up. We talk about 1 year in office. This has come up multiple times. There was an instance earlier in the year in which we posted a meme of a hefty fentanyl dealer. Is this woman who was giving fentanyl to children. And CNN and some of the legacy media outlets were outraged that we would make fun of this woman. How dare you protect this fentanyl dealer? Why are you doing this? This is disgusting. What they don't see is that most of the country sees a fentanyl dealer and goes, oh yeah, no, we can't have that. They've got to go to jail. And so again, he's boxed them in. They still haven't figured it out. Again, 10 years of this playing the same game. The left is being forced to defend the absolutely abhorrent, indefensible actions of some of the worst people in our country at the moment, and this is their platform. So when you talk about what you for, what you are against, they are saying outright right here today that they are for defending these pedophiles and these murderers and these terrorists in our country, because the president is for getting rid of them. I mean, we call it Trump derangement syndrome for a reason, and it's rampant in our country. Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the positives then that the president did go through today. Border security, tick, inflation, tick, growth, tick. I mean, there is a huge amount that you've done. And in fact, you were one of the first people that I met, Caelan, when you came to DC. And that was in the summer last year. And you and I joked about, you said, well, we've done so much in 6 months. I'm not sure what we're going to spend the next 3.5 years doing. When you look back now at the end of a year, have you found some things to do?
I think we found a few things to do. I think the Greenland thing is very important, and that's something we've, not necessarily went crazy on the campaign trail on, but we've certainly talked about it, the Venezuela action. But what I want to direct your attention to is, there are a lot of things we did that no one even talks about anymore because we did them so quickly, so effectively. Like, the southern border is closed.
Yeah.
Like, illegal immigrants aren't like entering our country the way that they were. I think what we get a little lost in the sauce on is tracking the online discourse, and people always want us to do more. And it's because they recognize that we're at truly an inflection point in our nation's history. We have someone in office who's going to do what they said they're going to do, and he's going to not really care about, not the consequences, but the PR of doing it, because we're doing the right thing. And I think people ultimately, in their heart of hearts, they get that, they know that, and that's why majority of people that were with the president in 2020 and 2024, they're going to stay with him through this. We're very excited about the next few years.
And kind of having to sum up in a way what he's doing, sort of ideologically. I was watching Scott Besson interviewed in Davos today, and the host said to him, we don't come to Davos, do we? And we instantly turn into globalists. And Scott Besson just said, the air is very nice here. And in other words, he's a reluctant visitor. Like, how much of the Trump team are going to be reluctant visitors in Davos because of the globalists and what they represent there?
Here's how I would phrase it. I wouldn't necessarily view their trip to Davos as a trip to kind of accept the status quo of the norm. We're going to go there and tout all the economic growth and all the wonderful things we've done in 1 year of office, but on the world stage. We're going to kind of show the world what we've been doing and why it works, and why other folks should at least be paying attention to everything that we're doing. It's the blueprint for a better America. And who's to say it can't be used elsewhere?
Yeah, are we going to see a little bit of the same sort of tone of the speech, do you think, tomorrow that we got at the UN General Assembly in October in New York, where President Trump basically dropped some massive truth bombs on everybody in the room and said, you are ruining your countries? Do you think it's going to be tonally similar?
I think that the president is consistently in that tone. He hasn't changed. Again, the World Economic Forum was like, in the first week of our first year here, and he was pretty scathing with them then as well. So I wouldn't necessarily expect that, but I would definitely expect him to go out there and speak extensively on kind of the economic growth and all the things that we're doing that these other world leaders seem to have issues with how the president conducts business. We got the results to back it up.
Is he feeling isolated? Because people accuse him, don't they, of being isolationist, as opposed to, they see it as a negative as opposed to a positive, putting the needs of his country first. But do you think he's starting to feel increasingly isolated on the global stage?
No, I mean, look, this is a man who is willing to talk to anybody. He brought in the mayor of New York, the new mayor of New York, who is a rabid communist, to the Oval Office, and they had a cordial conversation. I think if anything in the world could be farther from the truth, it is calling the president shy or isolationist, if only because the guy is willing to pick up the phone and talk to anybody.
You are one of the men behind the memes. And I'll often be flicking through the White House social media, and I see something and I think, that's got Caelan Doyle written all over it, the mischief of that. You've been responsible for some of the Jet 2 holiday memes.
I heard that made some waves back home. Huh?
That made a lot of waves in the UK. When you guys sit down to come up with some of that stuff, are you courting the controversy? Or do you just have a sense of humour and you don't necessarily anticipate how controversial they're going to be?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is having a sense of humor. I like to say, we don't, we're not the smartest in the world, but we have probably the best taste in the country. I get a call from my mom who goes, I know you're helping run this because this is exactly what you DM me on Instagram or Twitter or whatever. And I have to say, Mom, America loves it. So, we maybe calm down. But I honestly, we're not courting controversy. The key, the ethos behind it is that we want to communicate with people in the language that they speak with one another. So a good example is I've got a group of friends who I have no idea what's going on in their lives, but we've sent memes to each other 5, 6, 7 times a day, every day, for 10 years. I have no idea what's going on with them, but that's how we communicate. And so we like to arm people with information and with talking points and with talkative, just funny stuff, like entertaining things, because we're making things that we want to see, and I think that's important. For far too long, government has been very, very static and very there's no taste to the content whatsoever.
Yeah.
We're trying to change things up.
And oddly earnest. You look back now at the Biden administration and realise how serious and how earnest they were. And actually, the world can be a very difficult place to be. And sometimes you need your government to also have a little bit of a sense of humour. I'm thinking particularly of the Walk of Fame at the White House.
Oh, that's all the boss. And that's what's so funny about it, is that we take all of our cues from him. If he's going hard on an issue, we're going equally as hard in that direction.
So the auto pen portrait of Biden on the wall, the Walk of Fame, whose idea was that?
I can't take credit for that one. I think the president deserves the credit for the incredible work that they've done renovating the Rose Garden, putting that up. I mean, it's truly incredible. It's great.
It is incredible.
And the thing is, none of that's not true. It's all totally true, which is kind of sad.
And so, as you look towards the next 12 months, Caelan, and the next 3 years, really, if you could be here at the end of the presidency, what would a successful presidency look like for Trump?
Yeah, I think we've done a great job so far of getting inflation under control, reducing the Democrats' crazy price hikes here in the country. We've done a great job, obviously, sealing the border. I'd like to see us finish what we started on the deportation issue and just continue to put America first. What the greatest lie that anyone's ever told is that this is a difficult thing. That coming through and just doing simply what you campaigned on is some insurmountable challenge. And the president has proven them wrong time after time after time. And I think he's going to continue to do that for the next 4 years. This country is going to be the hottest country in the world right now. No idea this is how crazy hot we're going to be in 4 years.
And the relationship between the UK and the US, because I know our audience at home will be worried about that. It does seem like it's on shaky ground at the moment. Do you have cause for optimism there?
I'd say we always have cause for optimism for those who are willing to be pragmatic and to put their people first.
Yeah.
So I think the president's done a good job of keeping an open mind and making phone calls and handling business as he needs to be, and hopefully that continues.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, Caelan Dorr,
Thanks for having me.
White House Deputy Communications Director and maker of mischief memes. Still to come this evening on The Late Show Live.
I think they should keep it. I don't know why they're doing it. Do they need money?
We're going to have more on the Chagos Islands as the president turns his back on the plan. What is going to happen next? We're going to have Niall Gardner in the studio to speculate on that. This is The Late Show Live, only on GBNews.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning
from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live with me, Bev Turner. So, we woke up to quite the shock this morning when President Trump posted his anger at the British government's Chagos surrender. He said in a very punchy statement on Truth Social, the United Kingdom is currently planning to give away the island of Diego Garcia, the site of a vital US military base, to Mauritius, and to do so, capital letters, for no reason whatsoever. There is no doubt, he said, that China and Russia have noticed this act of total weakness. The UK giving away extremely important land is an act of, capital letters, great stupidity, which was really an extraordinary statement, which certainly casts into doubt the specialness of the relationship between the UK and the US. Well, GB News' political editor Christopher Hope asked Labour Minister Darren Jones for a response on that statement earlier today. Here he is.
Greenlanders don't want to be American, we respect that. But Chagos Islanders in the UK say they don't want to be Mauritian, but we don't respect that. Why are we handing over the Chagos Islands to Mauritius and a deal costing us £100 million a year? Isn't this an act of stupidity, as Donald Trump says?
On the Chagos Islands, look, we have secured that as a military base for the next century because the sovereignty of the island was being challenged. But we agreed it was important for our security capabilities in the world, including for our NATO partners, which includes the United States. We needed to find a way through that protected that. That was done. It was welcomed by the American administration when we've done it. The treaty has been signed, and so there'll be no changes on the Chagos Islands.
So that was Darren Jones, and just moments ago in the White House briefing room, President Trump doubled down on it.
That they, you know, when they originally were going to do it, they were talking about doing some concept of ownership. But now they're looking to essentially just do a lease and sell it. And I'm against that. You know, it's a reasonably nothing like Greenland, but it's a reasonably important area of the globe. Not to anywhere near Greenland, but I think they should keep it. I don't know why they're doing it. Do they need money?
So what inspired this turn of attitude? Well, it might have been sparked by this.
I don't understand why America has not been more forthright in saying this is a bad idea.
Well, it's a good question. I share your concern in general. It's obviously a very important location for us and for the UK. We recognize that. I don't know that the president has spoken directly to the issue or as forcefully enough, to your point, but I would assume he shares the same concern as you and I do about that. I've spoken to him about this particular issue. I talk to him sometimes multiple times a day, but this one hasn't come up.
Yeah.
We've had a lot going on.
So did GB News cause an international diplomatic row? Well, we've got the man to tell us, because Connor Stringer is here with this front page story on the Daily Telegraph claiming that's exactly what happened. Connor, would you like to congratulate us?
What you've done. Yeah, exactly. Congratulations to you. Congratulations to Nigel. Well, it seems exactly that. Speaker Mike Johnson has been in London, obviously, for the last couple of days, and Nigel got a hold of him, done his show. And from what I understand, that Chagos was always kind of on the radar of the White House until this interview, where Mike Johnson obviously discusses it with Nigel, who's passing words out to, you know, keep it in mind and keep at it. Mike Johnson almost kind of, you know, his response was the kind of response you'd expect from a politician who was, you know, expecting a phone call perhaps that evening from someone quite important.
Yeah.
And that call, from what I understand, it did come. And on that phone call with the president, we don't really know what was discussed, but I think, you know, in the hours after seeing the Truth Social post, one can draw their own conclusions as to what was discussed there.
Well, somebody definitely lit his fuse on this, Niall Gardner, and you, for one, I imagine, were probably quite pleased to see this. You've been campaigning very hard that you think this is the wrong decision. Just remind our viewers why this is not in the interests of the UK.
Well, firstly, of course, this was a massive humiliation for Keir Starmer, and what a great day, glorious day, I think, in so many respects. The Chagos surrender deal, I think, is the worst foreign policy move by a British Prime Minister in several decades. It's a huge act of self-harm for the UK, paying £35 billion to Mauritius, a Chinese puppet, to lease Diego Garcia on territory that is currently owned by the United Kingdom, British overseas territory, the Chagos Islands. And so this whole act by Keir Starmer has been incredibly dangerous, of course, Donald Trump, who has a great deal of common sense, weighed in today, blasting Keir Starmer, attacking the Chagos surrender deal as an act of great stupidity, which is what it is. And it's unfortunate we have a Prime Minister who acts in the most horrendous, stupid manner here with a deal that basically is giving away British territory to an ally of Communist China, and then the British people are actually paying for it as well. That's the height of stupidity, isn't it?
It is. Let's bring in Jonathan Liss and also Paul Cox from our London studio. Good evening to you both, gentlemen. Now, listen, let me come to you, Jonathan Liss, then, first of all, on this. Do you understand the logic behind the Chagos deal? Because even with the most generous of intentions, it's hard to work out how it is in the interests of the UK.
Well, first of all, Bev, I have to say that a lot of plastic patriots are really revealing themselves right now, openly celebrating the actions of an incredibly hostile leader who is now declaring economic war on our own country. I happen to think that when Donald Trump is basically declaring economic war and sort of turning on our Prime Minister over a deal that he himself endorsed a few short months ago, actually that is a time to rally as a country and say there are certain things that are not acceptable for other countries to do, rather than just go and bootlick for that foreign president who's being incredibly hostile. And I also just have to pick up on the previous interview, which is the biggest load of bilge I've ever heard out of one man's mouth, is what that spokesman was saying. And I just have to say, when he was saying about, you know, sort of we're clamping down on paedophiles and sex offenders, well, then maybe that's the reason why the White House should follow the law and actually release the Epstein files.
So you start the statement by saying you don't like whataboutery, and then you finish it with a big dose of whataboutery.
Okay, fine. So let me.
The point is that when it comes to the ICE raids, he was expressing the frustration that you have dozens, hundreds of what tend to be, frankly, bored middle-class women in this country. I say that as a middle-class mother. These are bored middle-class mothers in this country who are lining up to protect the very people that President Trump held up on those pieces of paper today to say
what you see, what you're seeing,
those people out of the country.
What you're seeing in Minnesota is innocent people being loaded into police vans, and you saw that man that was being taken away in the freezing cold in St. Paul and sort of being driven around for an hour and then just dumped back when it turned out they made a mistake. You're seeing this over and over again. These are the actions of a police state, not a healthy democracy.
You're seeing a very curated version of that story via media outlets which hate this government. That's what you're talking about.
It's not just people who hate the government,
Caelan Dorr was saying earlier, that the reason that Trump came out today and started his press conference like that is that frustration that you're being given a very diluted version, and it actually is a fake version of what's going on with ICE. There are a lot of people in the UK watching this that would absolutely love there to be the equivalent of ICE rounding up illegal migrants who have committed crimes.
You are seeing people being terrorised on the streets for being basically non-white, Bev, for looking like they might be foreign. There was one guy who was accosted for having a foreign foreign accent. This is completely outrageous. You can support the principles of republicanism and Trump while still acknowledging some of the abuses that are going on. And also, when that guy was talking about isolationism, I don't think anyone can accuse Trump of isolationism. He's literally threatening to invade a NATO ally. And that really brings us back to the conversation of the Chagos Islands. Because the only reason that Trump has turned on Starmer today about the Chagos Islands is because Starmer dared to challenge him over this outrageous act of extortion and blackmail to impose 10% tariffs on Britain. That's British businesses, British people, billions of pounds to the British economy, for daring to uphold the principle of self-determination and territorial integrity, the idea that we have been upholding for at least 80 years in this country.
So your logic is, because Donald Trump is egotistical, that is why he wants to punish Starmer over Chagos. So suddenly, Freud, you can decide what's determining
he's punishing him over Greenland
based on a really simple, reductive analysis of his brain.
But he's been open about it. He's been completely open about it. But he's literally putting a 10% tariff on the UK. Everyone in the UK should oppose that, by the way. It's completely outrageous and unjustifiable. He's putting that tariff on the UK because the UK dared to say that you can't take Greenland and dared to send one sort of army officer or whatever to Greenland as part of a force by some NATO countries. And by the way, Trump should welcome that because he's been saying that Denmark isn't defending Greenland enough, so NATO countries are stepping up to the plate. Trump should be welcoming it, not punishing us for it.
So but why do you think, and I will come to you in a minute, Paul Cox, but I do find this very interesting, and we'd like to hear all voices here on GB News, but why, Jonathan, do you think that he feels so strongly about controlling Greenland that he's prepared to put those tariffs in? Just rather than, and don't just say because he's a mad egotist. Like, from a policy, from a geopolitical point of view, what is his logic?
Well, Bev, this is, I'm afraid, a moot point. Because I would love there to be some kind of...
It's the very point.
Bev, I would love there to be... No, I wouldn't love there to be, but it would make my life easier if there was a solid geopolitical grounding for this. But let's just be absolutely clear about this point. Denmark and the US have a military treaty that allows the United States to station as many troops as they want in Greenland, have as many bases as they want. The United States has moved from having tens of 10,000 troops, I think, at one point in Greenland, to having just 200. That was a US decision. If there really was a big threat from Russia or China, the US could have as many troops they wanted. They also have the right to strike up mineral deals that they're talking about. With the Greenlanders have been absolutely open to having deals about mineral extraction in Greenland. But Trump's not interested in that. He wants to plant a flag on Greenland and make it his legacy, like McKinley buying Alaska. He's been open about it. That's why he put a fake picture yesterday on Truth Social of a map of the US, Canada and Greenland covered by a US flag. It really is the simplest answer. It's about his vanity and his ego. I'm sorry that's the case, but it happens to be the case.
I think there are very robust geopolitical reasons why we in the UK actually and the whole of Europe should feel like we can sleep safer at night if Greenland, with its proximity to Russia, with the fact that any intercontinental ballistic missiles which come from Russia, Greenland is going to know about it first. I would rather
it's already in NATO and the US already has a base there.
Let's bring in Paul.
And the Greenlanders don't want it, Bev.
We started talking about, and you're right, and if the Greenlanders don't want it, then it won't happen.
Okay, but Trump is talking about invading, Bev. He's literally threatening invasion.
Don't want him to. So
good, fine, but he's threatening invasion, Bev.
This is a massive hurdle he has to climb. He's not actually threatening invasion.
He's saying he's not really continually declines to rule it out.
But that is what good negotiators do, Paul, isn't it? Isn't that what he's in here? Is a situation that rationally he believes and his administration believe, because even if you don't trust him, perhaps you think they're all mad, perhaps you think Rubio is also mad. It's so convenient if they're all just insane because it stops you having to think any deeper. Paul Cox, what do you think is going on here?
Now this is, I to some extent completely agree with you, Beth, that this is an entirely different political channel of thinking than what we're seeing as a reaction to it. what Trump is doing is protectionism of the US, and fortunately, if we remain the US's ally, protectionism of us also. So I completely understand why Trump would go for Greenland. It's a military strategic location on the planet, and we know that over the last 10 years, there have been at least 5 attempts by China alone to try and do deals within Greenland, to get close to the minerals, to build the airport, to take over in some way. If it wasn't for the US during all 5 of those occasions, they probably would have been able to, because the Greenlanders thought those deals were sweet. Denmark never put up too much of a fight, and I think that highlights a key problem for the world. You have to choose a side at this point. I keep saying this like we're playing a computer game. It's not a game. This is real life now, right? Okay, that we either choose China and Russia on this side, or we choose the US on this side. And what do we want? Because we will sit right in the middle of that. So I think that there is a lot of sense in the US having control of Greenland. We know that they've had 10 bases open there previously, of which there are just a couple still open. They could do that. But what Trump wants is to own that strategic point. Sure, he wants a legacy. I understand that. And maybe he does. But I think your point of, is everybody else just falling in line? I think that's good scrutiny, and I don't think that they would do if it was purely just an ego drive. I think this is something we ought to start taking more seriously and look at it. Look, we all feel, not all, many people feel, no matter what political persuasion you are, might feel squeamish about Donald Trump going in and just taking Greenland. However, I'm not sure that's exactly what would happen. I don't think he'd send the troops in. Essentially, that would be NATO against NATO. I don't think that would be good. I don't think that would actually happen. But we have to ask the question, why does he want to do this? I don't think it's just because it's Donald Trump and he wants to collect another new shiny thing.
Yeah. OK, gentlemen, thank you. Great start. Stay with me. I know you're here for the next hour and a half. Stephen Kent is going to be joining me in the studio, a friend of the show. I'm sure you've missed Stephen. He's not been on since we got back from Christmas. He's going to talk about this Greenland potential land grab, and is the White House able to win the public opinion on this? Don't go anywhere. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
And
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. Right, let's talk about Greenland, because I don't know about you, we probably just saw an example of it there with Jonathan Liss, but the White House, I don't feel, is getting the messaging across as to why they want Greenland. So let's talk now to political commentator, PR expert, friend of the show, Stephen Kent, joins me now. Stephen, right, do you agree with me that the logic behind taking, controlling, see the language is difficult even around that Greenland, is there, but somehow it's a very difficult message to communicate?
Yeah, well, I mean, the Trump administration is very much divided within itself on what their message is. You know, your previous guest from the administration was talking about sort of a realist foreign policy where, you know, land is power, and that is true. The Arctic Circle is important. It has proximity to Russia. China was talking in 2018 about becoming an Arctic power themselves, and there's a sense that Greenland is strategically important. And that's one concern, but even the administration is not being clear just on that. Trump is sort of making it about power and glory, and, you know, like it's going to be sort of a hallmark of his legacy. But Christopher Wright at the Energy Department in the United States is talking about the key mineral reserves in Greenland, which are going to be hugely important for wind power, for battery production, for, you know, microchip development, that we would actually then control our own mining and supply chains for the AI boom. But that's his message. The administration has a bunch of different things that they could be saying, and they're not really being clear, so it boils down to Trump's tweets, which is just planting a flag on land like Alaska, I guess. But, you know, the guy you were debating with in London just a minute ago, you know, he was talking about, you know, Alaska being McKinley's legacy. Well, Alaska is really strategically important, so that aged quite well. If that was a vanity project for a former U.S. president, it's our buttress against against Russia. So sometimes these things work out for the best.
Do you think the younger generation here in America would look at Trump's ambition with Greenland and maybe think that that is something that the country has a right to do, is to just stick a flag?
So yes, I do. There was a poll that was out in Axios just today talking about young voters underneath the age of 35 who vote Republican or voted for Trump in the last election. And there's some good and bad here, right? But there's high levels of support, over 45%, for very illiberal approaches to dealing with the Supreme Court. Ignoring Supreme Court verdicts, breaking up checks and balances in the United States, ignoring the rules-based order of the international community. Basically, might makes right. So there is support for that within the young conservative bloc. And I suppose I would consider myself to be one of those people where I go, the real world is like this. And we have sort of been living in an illusion since World War II, where everybody is going to do everything by back-channeling, being polite the way Keir Starmer would like it. But things are changing very, very fast, and the United States needs to change with it. A good example of that, Mark Carney of Canada said just today that the rules-based order of the world has been an illusion, a useful lie. Those are his words. And Donald Trump has basically put them in a position where they're revealing that this was always the case, that the rules-based order was always just sort of a means to an end, but our allies or our enemies are rising against us, Russia and China. And Emmanuel Macron is talking about letting China into Europe to double, triple its investments. what kind of friends are these?
Yeah. Well, and we have the mega embassy in London that's just been given permission with over 200 rooms underground in the centre of London.
Yeah. Why? Why would you do this if you actually have a sense of who your friends and enemies are? Europe talks this big game about Russia and their threat to NATO on their eastern borders. And we know that Russia is aligned with China in a very close way, and they have a shared vision of the world. And yet, Europe lets China inside its borders in these sort of bizarre and grandiose ways, suggesting, I think, again, we can't trust these people. Like, if you're the United States, you cannot trust the political instincts of Europe and the United Kingdom. They are weak instincts. They are not thinking about power politics in the way that the 21st century is going to play out. They think it is still, I don't know, like 1990 or something. This is not going to go that way. So I do think that Donald Trump is forcing the world into a position here where we're being realistic about power and security. And it strikes me as odd that Europe is so alarmed that the United States would have a larger presence just to their west on the island of Greenland. And they have nothing to say about how they need the United States more on the eastern border against a hostile and aggressive Russia. They want our money, they want our guns and our rockets, but they don't want us on Greenland mining minerals. Why? Please tell us why we can't have that land for everything that we do for you. And I do think that is a position that most young Americans and young conservatives hold, which is that the trade-off here has gotten to be imbalanced.
Yeah. Stephen, fascinating. Thank you.
Thanks,
Come
Beth.
back and be on the panel again soon.
We'll see you next week.
You've been a busy boy. Great. Fantastic. Right, let me know what you think at home. A lot to think about there. gbnews.com/your say. In just a minute, I'll give you some exclusive insight on what the White House thinks about the UK approving that Chinese mega embassy we've just mentioned. They are not impressed. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to The Late Show live on GB News. Now, Prime Minister Keir Starmer's government has today given the green light to the hugely controversial Chinese mega embassy in London. Immediately after the decision was confirmed, local residents announced plans to mount a legal challenge. We're looking at the pictures online here. Well, tonight a White House source exclusively told GB News that the United States remains deeply concerned about adversaries exploiting the critical infrastructure of our closest allies, which is extraordinary. The United States, Paul Cox, is bringing our panel, remains deeply concerned about adversaries exploiting the critical infrastructure of our closest allies. Do you see this Chinese embassy as potentially exploiting the UK?
Oh, absolutely, not potentially. I think it is entirely. I've previously said that foreign embassies are perhaps something we should revisit as an idea. I fully understand the diplomatic value of a foreign embassy, but to give essentially our biggest foe a great big piece of real estate in the middle of London, close to, you know, cables that are carrying potential top secret information, to me, is an act of self-sabotage. I think that it's perfect that Keir Starmer sits as Prime Minister as we agree to all of this, because no one has committed more self-sabotage from British interest perspective than Keir Starmer. I think he's stupid. Genuinely, I think the man is stupid. I think he's blinded by ideology. I don't think he can see the wood for the trees. And I think because he doesn't have his own idea of what it is that he wants from his political career, we're becoming this victim of the nonsense that just comes out of him as a result of him having no conviction himself. Look, I understand that we do need this embassy, and it's going to happen. But for me, there are huge question marks about why we need to do this.
Connor, your newspaper, the Daily Telegraph, did a big splash on this. I think it was the end of last week, about this Chinese embassy. Are you concerned, you must be, even just as a member of the newspaper, about the risk that this exposes us to? And is it that the Prime Minister, is it that Keir Starmer, in fact it's the City of Westminster, let's face it, the City of London, sorry, they've given the planning permission to this. It's probably a little unfair to lay it at the door of Keir Starmer, but somebody who's given the planning permission for this building is either really naive or, as Paul says, really stupid.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? Albeit, I mean, the buck does stop with Sir Keir, you know, who ultimately approves the plans for an embassy to go ahead. Yeah. But as we revealed last week, the scale of this embassy is nothing like what probably we, the public, first thought or imagined. We got some unredacted plans that revealed kind of the scale of these secret rooms, some of which were very unclear and very close to some of the really sensitive fibre optic cables that keep the city going, that is used from all sorts of essential services. It just beggars belief that we can kind of wave this all through without further scrutiny. You saw MI5 again on the front pages today, giving more warnings about what this means and where they are on this. I just think it needs further scrutiny and more review before a decision.
Niall, you used to work with Margaret Thatcher. Is this the kind of thing she would have allowed to have happened in her London?
100% no. She would have strongly opposed this, and Keir Starmer, I think, has a deadly combination of being quite stupid, combined with a willingness to kowtow to the likes of communist China. And so this is a disgraceful and appalling move. Margaret Thatcher would have been horrified. Keir Starmer is the antithesis, of course, of Margaret Thatcher. He grovels to the enemies of the free world. And I do think that this is all on Keir Starmer's shoulders. This should be firmly rejected. This will be a huge spying centre for communist China in the heart of London.
Which, he's not stupid. Here's the thing, he may be many things, the Prime Minister, but he is a qualified lawyer. He can't be stupid. So is it just this ideology that he is just sort of just in awe of communists who run the world, Paul? Is that what it is, people like China? Because I really grapple with it.
I think that when people like myself and Niall say that he's stupid, it's wishful thinking. Because if he's not stupid, this is malevolent.
Yeah. OK. All right. Don't go anywhere. We're going to have a quick look at what Trump might say tomorrow in Davos after your weather.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Spells of rain and blustery winds overnight for many of us, but it won't be raining all the time. There will be some drier and clearer interludes. However, they won't be long lasting because low pressure continues to dominate the weather, not just this one, but another low coming along from the west, sending various frontal systems in various bands of rain. One band of rain has been affecting western parts of the UK through the day on Tuesday. That then swings east overnight, accompanied by gusty winds, followed by some drier and clearer interludes, but with a continued breeze with a lot of cloud, temperatures not dipping much further than 5 or 6 Celsius. And we start the day with the next batch of wet and windy weather pushing into southern counties of England. So a wet start for the south and southwest, some heavy rain turning up along with these gusty winds. But for Wales, the Midlands into northern England, Northern Ireland, at least a dry start with some cloud breaks. So some sunshine early on. But into Scotland, and especially central and northeast Scotland, we've got this other band of rain slowly clearing, some hill snow associated with it, and again, gusty winds coming in from the southeast. And we've got these two bands of rain moving south to north across the UK, so most areas seeing some rain at times throughout the day on Wednesday. The heaviest and most frequent downpours, Wales and the southwest, again with gusty winds not quite as strong as Tuesday, but unpleasant nevertheless. Thursday, it's a case of spot the difference. There'll be a lot more cloud once again and further spells of wet weather. Particularly persistent spell of rain is expected across central and eastern Scotland, with increasingly some hill snow associated with it. That could cause some issues, and it's going to stick around for the rest of the week. Otherwise, for many places, it's rain on and off, but some drier interludes at times.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Late Show live from Washington DC with me, Bev. This is GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America. Love him or hate him, he's got stuff done. It's 1 year today since President Trump was inaugurated into the White House. I've got two big guests coming up this evening, a special envoy of the President of the United States for Global Partnership and a member of the State Department. The monumental moment calls for monumental guests, of course. The President is going to be speaking in Davos tomorrow. Nigel Farage is also expected to head out to Switzerland, but will our Prime Minister? I'm Bev Turner. This is the Late Show Live. Remember, no breaks this hour. Stay with me. So President Trump was sworn in 1 year ago today, and it's safe to say he began his second term with a bang.
From this moment on, America's decline is over. Our liberties and our nation's glorious destiny will no longer be denied, and we will immediately restore the integrity, competency, and loyalty of America's government.
Let's have a look at some of the incidents from the last year. Do you remember this? It provoked a huge reaction worldwide. It was a meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky that took a rather unexpected turn.
Not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. But right now, you don't. Yeah, you're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III.
But before that, within his first day in office, Trump signed 26 executive orders, the most issued by any president on day one. He also announced that he would be applying reciprocal tariffs on imports from more than 90 countries back in April, shaking up the world economy. He said the goal was to level the playing field and to protect American businesses.
My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day, waiting for a long time. You know, you think of European Union, very friendly. They rip us off. It's so sad to see. It's so pathetic. 39%, we're going to charge them 20%, so we're charging them essentially half of America. United Kingdom, 10%, and we'll go 10%. So we'll do the same thing.
In just 1 year in office, President Trump says that he has resolved a staggering 8 wars. Among them, of course, was the conflict between Israel and Iran, as tensions in the Middle East seemed like they were teetering on the edge of disaster.
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I've never seen before. I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
True to form, the president did not hide his frustration, but by the end of June, his push helped Israel and Iran to agree a ceasefire. There is, of course, one conflict that he has yet to crack. Despite repeated efforts to bring the fighting to a close, the war in Ukraine continues. And in an effort to break the stalemate, Trump met directly with Russian President Vladimir Putin, the first meeting between the leaders of the two countries since the war began in 2022. There was that little flexing flyover there. There were also, of course, the two visits to the UK, the first in Scotland, where I made life a little bit uncomfortable for the Prime Minister. Mr. President, you have a successful social media site. There are new powers here to censor your site, state-mandated powers.
To censor my site?
To censor your site and
mean
Twitter
Truth?
and Facebook.
Truth?
I mean Truth. Is that okay?
Well, I don't think he's going to censor my site because I say only good things. Will you please uncensor my site?
Yeah, we're not censoring anyone.
Please don't censor my site. Well, free speech continues to be an issue that the two disagree on. He returned for an unprecedented state visit to the UK a little later with his wife, Melania. And I came back again, just to haunt the Prime Minister a little bit on that occasion as well.
To the Prime Minister, if you don't mind, are we still a Christian country? We still have 12,000 people a year here being arrested for social media posts, for free speech violations. Does that not remain an important area that there is still a lot of disagreement on?
That is wired into our informal constitution. Of course, we celebrate many other faiths as well, and I'm really proud that we're able to do so as a country. And on free speech, that has long lived in this country, free speech. It's one of the founding values of the United Kingdom.
Well, Trump was also hosted by the King and Queen, staying at Windsor Castle.
Your Majesty, Melania and I are deeply grateful to you and Queen Camilla for your extraordinary graciousness. And to William and Kate, thank you so much. It's been so great being with you today. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
We now know that he took inspiration from that room for the ballroom here at the White House. On the way back from that trip on Air Force One, I asked the President about his favourite enemy, Sadiq Khan.
Events in England, a state visit, spectacular, right. And yet the Mayor of London can't be there.
I didn't want him there. I asked that he not be there. I don't want them. I think the Mayor of London, Khan, is among the worst mayors in the world. And we have some bad ones. If you look at Chicago, but I think he's the equivalent of the mayor of Chicago. I think he's done a terrible job. Crime in London is through the roof. The Mayor of London, Mayor Khan, has done a terrible job. And
amongst the worst mayors in the world. After all of that grandeur, it was straight back to business. Going into his second term, the president faced the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas, a conflict that at one point seemed to have no end in sight.
The criminal conspiracy.
Okay. I'm just given. Yeah, I was just given a note by the Secretary of State saying that we're very close to a deal in the Middle East.
And yet they did it. Israel and Hamas agreed to the president's 20-point peace plan, and on October the 3rd of last year, all 48 hostages who'd been held in Gaza for 2 long years finally returned home. But definitely his favourite day of those 365 was, of course, the day he sat down with me in GB News for a world exclusive interview.
Fake news was a great term, except it's not strong enough. You know, I'd like it to be stronger. You know, the word fake is one thing, but this is beyond fake. This is corrupt.
That was days after it was revealed that the BBC had spliced his January the 6th speech to mislead the public on what he had actually said. The president would go on to take legal action against the corporation in a $1 billion lawsuit, and also claim a scalp in the Director General, Tim Davie. As we have come to expect of the president by now, he doesn't do anything by halves. And in an extraordinary mission, the American army launched a military strike on Venezuela and captured President Nicolas Maduro and his wife.
For many years after his term as president of Venezuela expired, Maduro remained in power and waged a ceaseless campaign of violence, terror, and subversion against the United States of America, threatening not only our people, but the stability of the entire region. Maduro and his wife will soon face the full might of American justice and stand trial on American soil.
And there are, of course, the many domestic issues that he is proud of. Top of that list is closing the southern border, achieving net zero migration, cutting taxes with the big, beautiful bill, reducing crime. He goes on about that a lot here in the capital, and the National Guard being on the streets. And, of course, he's radically overhauled health. Well, today he marked his achievements over the last 365 days in classic President Trump fashion.
These are accomplishments. We have a lot of accomplishments, and as you know, this is the anniversary, first anniversary, January 20th, and it's been an amazing period of time. We have a book that I'm not going to read to you, but these are the accomplishments of what we've produced. All page after page after page, individual things. I could stand here and read it for a week and we wouldn't be finished, but we've done more than any other administration has done by far.
Let's get the take now of Tommy Pigott, Principal Deputy Spokesperson for the Department of State. Tommy, so good to see you. I feel like congratulations to everybody that's made it through this first exhausting year. And the President said that, I'm not going to read this to you, but he almost did. He stood there for an hour and 45 minutes and spoke to the room. Just to comment on that to start with, in terms of his work ethic and his energy, he's nearly 80. We forget that. I don't know how he does what he does. Whether you love him or hate him, you cannot question his ability to just put his foot to the gas and get stuff done.
You really can. And what a difference between this administration and the last administration. A president that's really driving forward this agenda, and all of us here are taking his lead. It's so different from what we saw in the previous administration. And that was a great recap of so many of the accomplishments that President Trump has seen this year. And as he said, to list all of them would take a week and a half during that press conference. So I thought for a moment he might go all the way a week and a half. But it was a great press conference, a great roundup of what happened and what he's been able to achieve.
Yeah, and in the State Department, what are your overriding memories of this year, and what do you see as the key successes?
Well, I think one of the biggest successes is really our fight against the cartels and the narco-terrorists. It's such a shift. And of course, it has to do with the border being secure. But all of the partnerships we've seen throughout our hemisphere to really address this crisis. The leading cause of death for Americans aged 18 to 45 are these overdoses driven by fentanyl. And so we've seen agreements to address the precursors of fentanyl, security agreements across the board to combat these narco-terrorists, designations as terrorists that they are to open up tools to fight them. So that's one of the things I think that we have to do a lot more. We're continuing to do more, but I think it's one of the biggest impacts this administration will have in the long term.
And when you look across the world at other countries, and obviously our audience particularly interested in what happens in Great Britain, do you see that there are hurdles that stop us from taking such holistic but muscular action on these big issues? Because it can often feel like we'll try one thing, but we don't come at it from every angle like you do here. Where does that vision come from to approach issues in that way?
Well, I think it's President Trump coming from a perspective of, first, an outsider to politics. He's not a politician. And he's also not afraid to say the hard truths to people. We saw that most recently this week about the security that's needed in terms of addressing the threats from the Arctic, in terms of addressing the modern threats we might see there. So he's not afraid to have these hard conversations. And when you do that, you actually get people thinking about what the solutions can be. I think too many politicians are afraid to have those hard conversations. And the president's done it repeatedly. He's done it here in the United States, but he's also done it abroad at all of these different conferences he's been to, including the United Nations, where he spoke to so many leaders about the wake-up call that the West needed to face. And that's something we're taking inspiration from and his direction from throughout the entire administration. Having the hard conversations, not being afraid to speak the truth, speaking the truth as loudly and as often as we can, and then taking action to back it up.
He started the press conference today holding up a series of, basically, they were almost like wanted posters, weren't they? They were individual criminals on each one. People who were migrants who'd come into the country, had been seized by ICE, who were repeatedly committed crime and had now been slung out of America. And yet some people look at that as being very controversial. They accuse him of whipping up hate by doing that. But what is his logic for taking such clear action against getting that message across?
Well, the logic is defending the American people. I mean, as he said in this press conference, this would not have happened, this would not have been necessary if we didn't have the worst border crisis in U.S. history where tens of millions of people were allowed to enter the United States. That is unacceptable, and the president is taking clear action to address that. A connected issue with the visa revocations we've seen. 100,000 visa revocations from the State Department's perspective. The vast majority of those have to do with assaults, thefts, and driving under the influence of foreign nationals that did that when they were here in the United States. Bottom line, we're not going to allow foreign nationals to drive drunk on our streets, to steal from our stores, to assault our people when they're in the country. We're not going to allow it. We're going to put America first, have an America first policy that extends to ICE, that extends to border security, that extends to visas. And fundamentally, we're in this mess because of the previous administration, and the president is taking strong action to address it. And we've already seen the benefits and the payoff of his policy from the secure border.
So your opposition would say, but there are American people, Tommy, who commit crimes as well. Why single out the people who have chosen to live here rather than being born here?
Well, those that come illegally, those that are in our country as guests. Every single one of those crimes is preventable. Every single one. If someone who's here illegally, if you had a secure border, that crime would not have happened. So he's taking clear action to address that. And again, we're not going to have foreign nationals here on visas, guests of our country, that commit crimes in this country. We're not going to allow it. You wouldn't allow it in your home if someone came into your house and started breaking things, right?
I was going to say you wouldn't allow it in the UK, but unfortunately we allow it repeatedly in the UK. Now, Davos is happening at the moment, and President Trump is in the sky as we speak. He's on Air Force One, hopefully getting some sleep before this speech tomorrow morning. That will be 8:30 DC time tomorrow, so that'll be 5 hours later in the UK. It will be on GBNews in the afternoon for you guys there at home. He won't be popular walking into that room. There may be some reluctant ripple of applause, but he makes the globalists incredibly nervous, doesn't he? Because why? Can you explain what it is?
Well, I think because they know he's right. That's why I think they're nervous about it. And so they might not like him, but they'll know he's right.
You mean they wish they could be more Trump?
Well, I think maybe they don't like the fact that he's calling out all of the many policies that have been destructive, that he's calling those out. He's saying, enough of these failures we've seen. No, let's change course. Let's actually have some common sense policies in place. So I think that's what we're seeing is he is upsetting the quote unquote common knowledge that is not really knowledge at all. It's been proven wrong. And he's coming in and saying, let's get a new direction, let's take a new course. And as he said just recently, one of the main motivations of his speech will be saying, America's back. And America's back because we've taken the steps necessary to reverse the decline of the previous administration. We've taken those steps necessary. Here's the policies we have. And I think it's going to be a continuation of what we saw at the UN, a wake-up call for the West, a wake-up call to say, let's not do the same disastrous policies we've had. Let's change course.
He's been very clear, and also members of his team are very clear. Scott Bessent was interviewed in Davos today, and you could see that he wasn't prepared to say that he enjoys being there. He said, it's very nice, the fresh air. What is it about those non-governmental organisations? I'm thinking about the World Economic Forum running this week, and also the World Health Organization and the United Nations. What is it about those organizations that your government dislikes so much?
Well, I think when we can identify them, we actually had an announcement from President Trump just either last week or the week before, where we withdrew from 66 international organizations because they were either defunct, they ran counter to our interests, or nothing was really happening there. They weren't actually benefiting the American people. So I think what it really is there's been a lack of accountability for too long in too many of these places, a lack of accountability. And President Trump's saying, no, here's accountability. We're going to have accountability from the American perspective for our tax dollars, for our time, and for our national interests. We're going to pursue our national interests, seeking cooperation where we can, but standing firm on principle when we can't find that cooperation.
Because I don't think that news headline got enough attention. The fact that, and you just said it then, that America pulled out of 66 of these organizations because we live in this age of accountability deficit. So in other words, the American government, and no doubt the British government as well, has been, for decades, ploughing taxpayers' money into these these talking shops. These they're just a conduit, actually, for people who want to become involved, get in the orbit, sit around in a committee meeting, claim millions on expenses, get paid millions in talking fees, and achieve nothing. Is that his frustration, that they get nothing done?
Achieve nothing, or worse, promote policies that are destructive. Some of those organizations we withdrew from wanted to attack American energy, or wanted to fuel mass migration, and wanted to force the American people to accept policies that fueled mass migration. That's unacceptable. That runs counter to our interest. And the thing is, with our presence in these institutions, it legitimized them. It legitimized these institutions through our presence, and we were no longer going to do that. We weren't going to waste our time, waste our money, or legitimize these institutions that at best did nothing, were just rooms for talking heads to say nothing and accomplish nothing, and at worst ran counter to our interests and tried to force us to adopt policies that were harmful to the United States.
Tommy, thank you so much. I'm about to talk in just a moment to a financial expert, Mitch Firestein, about the state of the financial markets. I know this isn't necessarily your specialism, but actually a lot of people are concerned about the financial world at the moment and whether we're heading for a huge boom and a crash. Your feelings on that? Is our money safe?
Well, I think we've seen trillions of dollars coming into the United States from investments because of these policies. We're seeing real wages rise. We're seeing energy prices fall. I think those are all good things for the pocketbook of really everybody. The American people, from my perspective here, being the priority as an American government official, but really everybody. So I think we're seeing those impacts of President Trump's economic policies, the investment coming in. And then, again, that's part of that wake-up call. Balanced trade relationships that are more stable, allow for better prosperity, better working together to achieve those goals.
Yeah. Okay, Tommy, thank you so much. Really great to hear from you on all those topics. Right, Tommy Pigott there, Principal Deputy Spokesperson for the State Department. Right, the price of gold and silver has hit an all-time high as investors are panicking at the threat by President Trump to impose tariffs on countries that oppose his proposed takeover of Greenland. Gold prices hit a new high of nearly $5,000 and silver reached nearly $96. Precious metals are often seen as a safer asset to hold in times of uncertainty. Let's talk now to the CEO of the Glacier Environmental Fund Limited, Mitch Firestein. Mitch, thank you so much for joining me. You raised my attention to this story today, and I know there are very few people in the world, Mitch, that understand the financial markets better than you do. What can we read into what is happening to gold and silver?
Well, thanks a lot for having me tonight. And, you know, as we've discussed before, Bev, that there's a lot going on in the world right now, and people don't just need to look at the United States. They need to look at Europe, and they need to look at the rest of the big picture. The bigger picture, of course, is Germany's been in a recession for more than 3 years right now, and they're in a serious depression, actually, because their energy prices keep rising and their production is down, and record bankruptcies are hitting in Germany right now. The UK is not far behind because of the crazy policies by Ed Miliband. So the move into gold and silver, these are proxy currencies. Gold has been a currency for 6,000 years, no matter what anybody wants to say. And I wrote my book about the credit crisis back in 2012 when these assets were much lower priced. And I said, eventually people should get involved in buying physical metals like physical silver, physical gold, and holding it because it's actually a store of value. When governments have a mass amount of debt, the US has a lot of debt. Britain has even more debt. Being dual national, I know. I live between London and New York, so I understand the intricacies of both marketplaces and what's going on with both. They've just printed more money, and they want to get rid of all fossil fuels in the UK, which is, as you see, catastrophic for consumers, especially OAPs, and especially without the fuel benefit that you used to have that Labor promised they would never get rid of, and now it's gone. And in the United States, you have similar type things, except when Donald Trump was elected for his second term as U.S. president, the prices of oil dropped by 30%. So we came down to under $60 a barrel, which means that gasoline prices are under $2 in the U.S., so it's really helping and a boon for the U.S. economy. Unfortunately, Europe didn't follow suit, and the U.S. market under Donald Trump is doing much better because productivity is better, the job market's returned, we have less illegals crossing over our borders. Other places in Europe didn't get the message, obviously, because you've got Macron Stammer, and you've got all of these liberals leading Europe down a path of just spending more money. And this is why you're seeing a surge in gold and silver and precious metals. And as you saw, crypto has taken a bath. Crypto's down almost 40% from its highs.
I was actually going to ask you about that now, Mitch. And I know you're not here to give financial or consumer advice to our viewers, but I'm sure people are sitting at home now going, if I had a choice now, would I put my money in crypto or would I buy some gold and silver? What would your suggestion be?
Well, look, my suggestion would be you should have been in gold and silver a long time ago. However, I do not think that this is the end of a rally. Wait, this is not the end of the rally, because I think that we've seen a parabolic move. I mean, silver is up 240% almost in less than a year. So, you know, a little bit over a year, actually. Gold is up 100%, and platinum is up 140%. So those metals will continue to go up in price, but as they pull back, because the stock market in the United States, I think, is grossly overvalued, because you've got 7 stocks, a magnificent 7 stocks, all the AI bubble. Those stocks have a valuation of $21 trillion, and that's 21,000 billion for people who don't get the math behind that. So that's ridiculous. That's almost 35% of the 3,500 stocks traded in America are concentrated in a universe of 7 names. That's way overvalued at this point. So what will happen, in my view, is that the stock market, the valuations are too high. They got into a bubble because of the last administration. The Biden administration printed tons of money with the Inflation Reduction Act, which caused inflation to spike to 50-year highs of 9.2%. You know, they repeated this model in the UK, as you know. And so you had massive inflation, and that has come down under President Trump. But the cumulative effect of the past 4 years has been 27% inflation. So that's very difficult to pass. We need to get higher wages to do that. We still have growth in our economy, and the U.S. economy is probably one of the only economies that's growing. The UK economy under Stammer is just dead, actually, and you know that's really problematic for the people. And myself, as a UK citizen, it's very disappointing.
It really is. And let me just ask you, Mitch, because one of the sort of economic consequences of this last year has been unemployment, but not from blue-collar workers, but actually white-collar workers because of AI. AI is hitting researchers, lawyers, financial advisors. It's hitting all the people who would normally sit the laptop class, isn't it? What are these people going to do for jobs, Mitch? And do you find that those people who are in positions of power to make this decision are actually even thinking about it, or are they just not even considering that?
I would be very careful and highly suspect about those numbers, about the jobs that are being replaced by AI right now. I think the high-paying jobs have all disappeared because the economies were not doing well, and those are the first people who end up getting sacked. And I think that people like to use AI as an excuse. However, AI is not the be-all and end-all that people are representing it to be. If you look at what AI does, it's pretty much a glorified librarian function right now. Perhaps in 5 to 10 years it will be able to think and have logic functions, but if you give it complex calculations to do, it can't do it. I think there's far too much money getting sucked into the AI spear, and people are falling into a trap. And I think that's why a lot of these tech companies are valued where they are. I think it's pretty ridiculous. I think the jobs, the high-paying jobs started disappearing before AI and before the AI bubble. But we're in a massive AI bubble right now. Far too much money is being thrown at this, and it will end badly like every other bubble always has. That's why I think people are looking towards metals as a bit of a safe haven, but metals are going to outperform, and commodities should outperform everything in the market this year, I think. And stocks may be challenging in the U.S.
Okay. Right, brilliant. Thank you so much, Mitch. Mitch Firestein there, the author of Planet Ponzi and the CEO of the Glacier Environmental Fund Limited. Thank you so much for joining the Late Show Live this evening. My panel are here with me, Connor Stringers back with me, and Niall Gardner. Do you know what, fellas? When we talk about how much gold and silver, and Paul Cox and Jonathan Liss are still there in London, when we talk about how much gold and silver have increased in value, I cannot tell you the regret I have that I didn't buy any.
You and me both.
Are we all sitting here feeling like that, or is anybody smugly going, well, I invested all my money in gold a year ago, Paul Cox? Is that you?
It's really not. And when he talks about 100% this and 120% that and 150%, I'm thinking, just imagine if you just put a couple of grand in that. You know, that would make all the difference. No, it's good to hear that. And you know what? I'll have this thought now, and tomorrow I won't. And I'll still be relying on pounds and pence again in a year's time, unfortunately, Bev.
Yeah, Niall, how about you? Did you invest heavily in gold and silver 2 years ago?
I'm afraid not. I think we're all in the same boat. I was struck, though, by what Mitch was saying about the state of the British economy and economies in Europe dead in the water, basically.
Yeah.
And, you know, socialism really destroys everything in its path. And that's what we're seeing in the UK at this time, actually.
Why does socialism destroy everything in its path? Is it because it doesn't account for psychology? That's the only thing I think. It doesn't account for human nature and the fact that people are inherently competitive and don't want to give away their hard-earned money to other people.
I think socialism fails because it is the antithesis of freedom and individual choice and liberty, and anything that restricts freedom is doomed to failure, I think. I think that's, you know, that's why I look at it, Bev. You know.
Yeah, because that is human nature, right? Because we want to be free. Is it that, Conor Stringer?
I think so. I think it's absolutely an element like of that. And as you say, Bev, I think there's a competitive element in everybody that, you know, where you work hard and, you know, earn your own money that you want to keep to yourself and spend it as you please.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, let me know what you think at home. gbnews.com/your say. Still to come this evening on The Late Show Live.
I, Sharon, Baroness Davies of Devonport, do solemnly, sincerely and truly declare and affirm that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles, his heirs and successors, according to law.
That gives me goosebumps. Former Olympian and women's campaigner Sharon Davies has become a baroness as she joins the House of Lords. That is the karmic wheel of justice turning in the right direction. We're going to give you the front pages as well this evening. More Beckham family drama. This is The Late Show Live. No breaks, remember, just a quick look at the weather on GB News.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Some places are starting dry today. Make the most of it because there is more rain to come for all of us through today and indeed for tomorrow. Particularly heavy over eastern parts of Scotland, where it is mostly rain we're seeing today, but increasingly through tomorrow there'll be some hill snow too. Wet conditions across the south of England at the moment, and that rain is spreading northwards. May not get to the central belt of Scotland until quite late this afternoon, so staying largely dry here, but elsewhere outbreaks of rain on and off. Not especially cold, but of course it doesn't feel all that pleasant, with temperatures a little bit above average, 11 degrees perhaps across the southwest, but feeling cooler with the wind and the rain. And yes, more of both of those to come through this evening and overnight. Further pulses of rain working across the southeast. A lot of spray, a lot of surface water on most of the major routes for this evening's rush hour. There'll be wet weather by this stage across all of Northern Ireland, and as I said, spreading up through southern Scotland too. Another pulse of rain then getting into eastern Scotland, and we do have a Met Office yellow warning in place here from tonight throughout Thursday and into Friday, because the rain continues to feed in off the North Sea on this brisk southeasterly wind. There will be some hill snow mixed in with that as well. Elsewhere, well, it may turn a little bit drier, but overall it's a cloudy night with further outbreaks of rain and drizzle and a fairly brisk wind. That all adds up to a pretty mild night, with temperatures generally staying at 5 to 7 degrees Celsius, so most places well away from a frost. Thursday then, another grey, wet day for most. Again, the rain continues to fall hard over eastern Scotland. Elsewhere, it'll tend to come and go a little more, but a pretty soggy day again for northern England. Further pulses of heavy rain, the brighter colours there for Wales, the Midlands and southern England. Perhaps a little bit drier for East Anglia at times, and the far north of Scotland also, with the wind providing a bit of shelter. Again, temperature around average, but feeling cooler with the wind and the rain.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you for staying with us. Let's delve into some of the main stories on the front of tomorrow's newspapers. Over from the UK, The Independent are leading on Macron taking aim at bully Trump. This is a French leader calling for the rule of law over brutality, which the newspaper is interpreting as a thinly veiled swipe from Davos. And we're looking at Macron there with his weird reflective shades on. Connor.
I just don't. I mean, so he claims to have a bit of an eye injury. There's been a few jokes in our office as to what maybe lies behind those sunglasses, but it's extraordinary, isn't it? But why those choice of sunglasses?
Very
I don't
strange.
Get it.
Should we have a little look at a clip of him?
Looks utterly ridiculous.
Here we go. Let's have a quick look.
We do believe that we need more growth, we need more stability in this world. But we do prefer respect to bullies, we do prefer science to plotism, and we do prefer rule of law to brutality.
It's very, very strange. I mean, what would have to be wrong with your eyes to wear such attention-seeking glasses on stage?
But it's not even like French chic, is it? It's just so. Yeah. It's just so like Tom Cruise-esque bad boy.
Very strange. Let's bring in Paul Cox. Would you like to gossip and speculate as to why Macron might have those sunglasses on?
Well, I don't want to get myself in any trouble, but I'm wondering if there's some trouble at home potentially, Bev. I mean, it's not unheard of for him to take a slap or two on an aeroplane. I think there's a little bit of vanity involved here. He might well have an eye injury. I don't want to dispute that, but like you say, I think this is a slight overreaction. He's a man who is very interested in his image, I think. And by the way, it totally undermines his points. I mean, he says about, you know, he stands there with the sunglasses on saying Donald Trump's a bully and trying to make a serious point. No one's listening to him. Everyone's going, what are you wearing the glasses for, mate?
You can absolutely bet that Donald Trump is saying the exact same thing. He's absolutely seen that clip at some point today and gone, what on earth is that?
It's bizarre, because and also so many journalists at Davos tomorrow will not be listening to anything about policy. They'll be just desperately trying to look behind the glasses, won't they? Trying to work out what it is that's going on behind there. It's really, really weird. Should we look at another story? On the front page of The Guardian, they are leading with Europe condemning Trump threats on Greenland as a new colonialism, and there he is, Macron again, his shiny shades on the front. Europe condemning Trump threats on Greenland as this new colonialism. This is going to rumble on and on, isn't it, Niall? Unless they can work out a deal that looks like collaboration rather than colonialism, which my gut instinct, I don't know about you, is telling me that's what it's going to look like in the end anyway.
Yeah, it's quite rich of Emmanuel Macron to be lecturing the United States about colonialism, when of course the French behaved like a colonial power in Africa, for example. And this is typical grandstanding from Emmanuel Macron, full of hot air, frankly. And he's a hugely unpopular French president. His own cities in France are burning through endless rioting. Lost control of his own country, now he's lecturing the leader of the free world. So I think, you know, Emmanuel Macron cuts a rather sort of pathetic figure on the world stage.
I don't think there's been a time in our living memory, at least, I'm sure, where the gap between Europe and America has been so wide. You pick any major issue, Connor, and you can draw a line between the two, or whatever it is, on the economy. Do you agree with me? Is that how you see it?
Hands down. And I think the special relationship is probably the most frayed and stretched it ever has been, you know, in its history, whether it's from free speech to immigration, now to Greenland, the Chagos Islands. We're at a point where we have been so deep-rooted in the special relationship for years in defence and intelligence that it's really being tested to its limits now. And Europe, for the first time, is having to look around each other and say, look, what might life without America look like? What if America was to step away from NATO? What if Trump turns his back and doesn't come to the rescue, God forbid anything happen? And that's a really significant step and breakaway that we've never seen before.
I think we have a clip. I don't know whether the huge team of thousands in London can find the clip of Rachel Reeves talking on the stage today. I think they might be able to. Should we have a quick look at it? This is Rachel Reeves talking on stage. Yeah, we can. Here we go. Let's have a quick look at this, and we'll talk about that special relationship once we've watched this clip. Here we go.
Now, you do have some reserves of critical minerals, but not everything you need. 90% of your critical minerals at the moment come from the US, from China.
So that went on a little bit longer, and at one point she was talking to Howard Lutnick there on stage, and Howard Lutnick actually said to Rachel Reeves, "We love you." He said, "We love your country," and she sort of went in that very British way. She went, likewise. But you can see she was a little bit awkward with this sort of overt show of affection, thinking, I'm sure the relationship between us is rather awkward at the moment. But I wonder, Paul, whether it's going to take some more of these members of the Trump administration this week to have those conversations on stage to cement this relationship and to confirm that really the connection between the two English-speaking countries is still there, regardless of some of the rhetoric that might come from the president.
Yes, and I think it always will be. At least I very much hope so. A lot goes on in the background between the teams of these people. Don't forget that politicians come and go. The blob, as I often refer them to, always remain. Those teams continue to talk between the two countries. And look, there is really no safe existence for us without the US. I hate to just keep going on about the same point, but we need to make a choice at this point. Whose side are we on? And a lot of these people, Rachel Reeves included, sits within her ideological bubble, talking about her ideologies and delivering endlessly bad budgets after endlessly bad budgets. If she could just jump out of that a sec, just park the criticism, which is much deserved, and start to look at why the relationship is important. And also, like you were saying earlier, Bev, why Donald Trump is doing some of the things he's doing. This isn't just because he's an egotistical maniac. One of the reasons this story perpetuates so much is because these leaders, these failing leaders, as Niall was pointing out, they're able to coalesce around this. It's a buoy they can hold on to in stormy waters at the moment, because without it, politically at home, they are in a lot of trouble. Whereas this galvanises them to some degree. But it won't last. It won't last. They have to come to an agreement. NATO doesn't exist without the US, and our safety doesn't exist without the US.
Niall, I don't know whether you noticed, but it certainly occurred to me that when Trump was talking about the 8 countries that he would put tariffs on if they don't collaborate with him over Greenland, Italy was not on that list. Why might that be?
Yeah, that's very significant. And Giorgia Meloni, actually, who I think really is the strongest and soundest leader in Europe right now, she's taken a very pragmatic approach on Greenland. And she has been advocating for European governments to sit down and talk with Donald Trump to work through a real solution here. And she's been a sort of lonely voice on all this. And Giorgia Meloni is someone who I think really represents Europe's future. Figures like Emmanuel Macron, for example, represent Europe's past. And Meloni has been a very successful figure, and she has been, I think, the most impressive figure in Europe in terms of working closely with the Trump administration. Donald Trump values her advice and her strategic outlook for Europe, and they've developed a very, very strong partnership, and that's very good to see.
Should we do a little gear change? Because I know you all are very interested in what's happening to the Beckhams.
I'm glued. I also need somebody to kind of explain the intricacy of it, but I do love a bit of kind of celebrity scandal fallout. We all do. If I told you it was one of our most read stories today, would you believe me? Forget Trump. This is the kind of thing that's going mad. Here it is in the front page of the Sun.
Where's your empathy, Conor Stringer? Where's your sympathy for this family that are torn apart by this? Why is it so gripping?
I think it's just the typical, isn't it? It's like Britain's arguably most famous family ripped apart down the middle, very reminiscent of what we saw with Prince Harry and Meghan, of course, and the split with the royal family. Britain often needs a bit of scandal, I think, and celebrity drama to keep the
It's interesting that the Conor mentions, of course, Prince Harry, because I do think that Brooklyn, Beckham is the Prince Harry equivalent of the Beckham family, actually. Sense of entitlement, spoilt brat sort of figure. And I'm a strong supporter of David Beckham, posh Beckham. I think the way in which this particular son has behaved is absolutely appalling and atrocious, actually.
Did you see the footage, though, of the red carpet event that they were all at? I think it was just before or maybe just after the wedding, where Posh and Bex were posing. Brooklyn and Nicole Peltz come into the side, and Victoria has her back to them, and she does not turn towards them. She doesn't turn around like you would if it was your son on a red carpet. You would turn around and you'd bring them in. There was clearly a frosty atmosphere, and Nicole Peltz's face, is it Nicole, whatever her name is, Nicola Peltz, her face is like thunder, and at that point you can see there's clearly been an issue that's been going on. But when you look at this, the front page of the Mail here, you've got Katie Hines saying the real inside story, you've got Sarah Vine, how can any son be so cruel to his mother, you've got Alison Boshoff, David's been left ashen, but this is why Brooklyn felt he had to go nuclear. Do these journalists really know what's going on, Connor Stringer?
I think you'd be surprised the amount of what we call briefing you get from the various teams in this that guide and steer these stories. You saw Brooklyn kind of, hinting at that in his Instagram story, which was the first
hinting?
Yeah.
He directly accused his parents of briefing against him to the newspapers.
Does that ring any bells? I know a particular exiled son that did the same thing and is in court at the moment doing the same thing. It's extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think one day we'll maybe get the real story, perhaps a Netflix documentary or a tell-all Spotify podcast.
I think there's a brilliant psychologist online who I've been following, and I'm definitely going to try and get to speak to her this week, because she specialises in what's called cut-off culture, because this is such a problem that you've got teenagers or young adults, Paul, that are going no contact is the phrase with their parents. And her argument as a psychologist is we've created this generation of youngsters who they don't believe in doing any hard work on themselves, they don't believe in communicating when it's difficult, but what they think is that they have somehow cast isolating themselves as an indication of strength, that they think it's a strong thing to do to say, I'm cutting myself off from my parents, whereas actually it's just a cop-out when there were conversations that you don't have the maturity or the emotional fortitude to have. Can you relate to why that's happened to a younger generation? Can you understand it?
Yes, I think because a lot of these younger people, a lot of them young adults now, that have had access to social media throughout their adolescence and some of them throughout their childhood, they don't reach back into the family unit in the same way they would. They take their advice from outside the family unit. So there's these new therapeutical methods, like you say, which say, well, you just go no contact. You split up with someone, you go non-contact. You split up with your parents, you go no contact. I mean, where does that end? Everybody's just not talking to each other, and we're all facing each other backwards on the red carpets, like you were pointing out earlier. I think it's a real shame. I hope this never happens to me with my daughter. I guess, there's always going to be problems. We always have falling outs with our family. But I think ultimately, a bit, I keep saying all evening I'm not interested in this story, but I've got to confess, I am interested in this story. I am, of course I am. And one of the reasons it's such a big story is every single one of us comes from a family, and every single one of us has had a falling out with our family at some point over something. And, there for the grace of God, really, any one of us could find ourselves in this position. I really do hope they sort it out. I really do hope that they don't carry on this kind of media briefing nonsense, because it's not going to get anyone anywhere.
I think one of the issues that saddens me so much about this story, and it's very similar with Prince Harry, and I know you're very intimately involved in that particular narrative, Niall Gardner, is the destruction of the family. Because we need families to survive, and what we're seeing time and time again are families that cannot stay together. And what, Niall, would be the long-term consequences for humanity, frankly, if families cannot weather difficult storms?
Yeah, exactly, Bev, and it's so immensely destructive, I think, for the future of our civilization, actually. And unfortunately, we do have a sort of rising woke mindset and mentality that we're seeing. You can see it clearly within the Beckham family, with Brooklyn Beckham. You see it with Prince Charles and sorry, not Prince Charles, but Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. This sort of woke, selfish, self-entitled mindset that is so destructive, I think, for the future of families. And you look at, for example, Prince Harry's treatment of his own family. He writes a book basically trashing his own family, Spare. an absolute disgrace, really.
Yeah.
And I think it's so immensely destructive, Bev, that we're seeing this.
It is destructive, and in some ways, what I realised watching David Beckham today, because he's in Davos and he was talking about social media. I think, poor guy, is in the absolute eye of the media today, with everybody wanting to hear him. And actually, we very rarely hear in the media celebrities talking about the importance of family. It never really gets the attention that it deserves, does it, Connor? When it underpins really everything that we in a liberal Western democracy rely on to survive.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know why that is. Is that just a shift in values, do you think, Bev, over the course of the year? Have we just drifted away from that? It's funny because when you come to America, at least in Washington under the Trump administration, there has been a real renewed push for families, having kids young, you know, growing up, you know, surrounded by people that you love and adore, to kind of grow old and successful together. And I do wonder if we're getting to a point in time in Britain where we will soon adopt a similar mindset, or what it takes to kind of bring that back.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you have any logic on that, Paul, as to why the family is no longer prized?
I do, actually. It's quite conspiratorial, but I think we've edged ever closer to socialism, we've edged ever closer to communism, and those things take away the family unit. You are reliant on the state, and as a result, you're not taught to reach in, you're taught to reach out. And I think that that's just... We've seen that perpetuate throughout society. You're absolutely right. What you're seeing with Trump and some of the movements on the British right is they're re-engaging with faith. They're re-engaging with the church because they've got nothing else to look to. They're saying, this is not what I want. I want something higher than this. I don't want Keir Starmer to be guiding my life.
Yeah, and it may not be a coincidence that during lockdown they literally said you cannot see your family, and it went on steroids from that point onwards, didn't it? It made it okay. The government was telling you cannot see your family regardless. Right, we've got this clip actually of the Beckhams on the red carpet that I was just talking about just a moment ago. I would urge you to look at the body language between Victoria Beckham and... Oh no, sorry, this is Beckham talking today, apologies. This is Beckham at Davos today. Let's see what he said.
I've always spoke about, you know, social media and the power of social media, you know, for the good and for the bad. You know, the bad we've talked about with what kids can access these days, and it can be dangerous. But what I've found personally, you know, especially with my kids as well, use it for the right reasons.
And he said, you know, you've got to let them make mistakes. I mean, poor guy. I felt for him then, Connor, didn't you? Knowing that everyone's hanging on his every word. His family's right in the middle of that. His son is not talking to him. His son has literally accused his mother of doing dirty dancing with him on his wedding day. All credit to David Beckham for not coming out today and wanting to dispute some of those rumours. It must have been stuck in his throat to say it's not true.
You're absolutely right. It was like that elephant, that awkward elephant in the room where you kind of all are waiting to actually, you know, get to the point about the kids and, you know, and what's going on there.
Yeah.
It is really sad, isn't it? Especially a cultural icon like David Who, or Sir David, who's given everything to the game, the football game, but also, you know, public service now, kind of adopting this position as being quite a public role model. To see it play out in such a brutal way in the papers and the press is never nice.
Let's just finish by looking at what's on the front of your newspaper then, Connor String. On the front of the Daily Telegraph tomorrow, should we look at the front page of that? Fix your country. Trump tells Starmer. Let's have a quick look at the front page here. Fix your country, Trump tells Starmer. It says the president calls, reach for my glasses, apologies. President calls Chagos deal an act of stupidity as a rift with the European leaders deepens. You are one of the bylines, of course, on that particular article. What do you think the follow-up is going to be after the speech tomorrow? Can you write part 2 while you sat here with us now, Connor?
You know, I wish I could try and predict Donald Trump, but if I did, I'd be, I maybe wouldn't be a journalist. I'd be making loads of money. Maybe have loads of gold and silver, perhaps I'd put it on into that. I think time will tell what he's going to come in. But the mood in the room today, Bev, seems like it's going to be a little bit more tempered down than perhaps that we've seen in Truth Social the last couple of days. Yeah,
and a picture of Prince William on the front page there. Well done to the Daily Telegraph, saying, William, we need to help pubs, but will Rachel Reeves be listening to him? I wonder, Paul Cox. Will it make any difference, Prince William coming out and saying we need to help our pubs?
No, it won't, actually, unfortunately, I don't think. I think we should be doing exactly that. I said this on the previous show with Patrick, that the pub is the centre of our culture. It's something we should be proud of. We've lost, we talked about family units, community units, all these things are dispersed now, and it's because our politics have changed and we've become completely reliant on outside influences when we could look in a little bit more, I think, Bev.
Yeah, I think we probably could. And on the other side of that, MPs demand the review of the Letby convictions as the case is closed. This is the case of Lucy Letby, the neonatal nurse whose case, Paul, I don't know who is most familiar with this, probably you, Paul, maybe in the UK. It's often struck me that this case was not entirely sound and she probably has a right to an appeal.
Yes. Look, a lot of things are being brought into question on this. I don't have a dead set view on this, whether Lucy Letby's innocent or guilty. She's at the very centre of this are dead babies, Bev, and I always remind myself of that when I'm talking about it. It's incredibly serious. If this isn't right, then our judiciary system has a tremendous amount to answer for. So I think there's a lot of pressure on this.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, thank you all, gentlemen. I just want to remind you at home that President Trump will be delivering that speech in Davos tomorrow, 8:30 Davos time, which is 2:30 p.m. UK time, Conor Stringer. Have I got that right?
Oh, here we go, my mental arithmetic. I'm going to go with yes. I would never doubt you, Bev. I would never doubt you.
We'll have to check on that.
1:30. I think. Well, I'm being told 1:30 UK time. I thought it was 2:30 UK time. It's a bit like being on the phone to my mum when she goes, "What time is it where you are?" So listen, tune in to GB News from 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, or just keep us on now over the night, and we will bring you every single second. It will be amazing. Good night, everybody. See you tomorrow.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Some places are starting dry today. Make the most of it because there is more rain to come for all of us through today and indeed for tomorrow. Particularly heavy over eastern parts of Scotland, where it is mostly rain we're seeing today, but increasingly through tomorrow there'll be some hill snow too. Wet conditions across the south of England at the moment, and that rain is spreading northwards. May not get to the central belt of Scotland until quite late this afternoon, so staying largely dry here, but elsewhere outbreaks of rain on and off. Not especially cold, but of course it doesn't feel all that pleasant, with temperatures a little bit above average, 11 degrees perhaps across the southwest, but feeling cooler with the wind and the rain. And yes, more of both of those to come through this evening and overnight. Further pulses of rain working across the southeast. A lot of spray, a lot of surface water on most of the major routes for this evening's rush hour. There'll be wet weather by this stage across all of Northern Ireland, and as I said, spreading up through southern Scotland too. Another pulse of rain then getting into eastern Scotland, and we do have a Met Office yellow warning in place here from tonight throughout Thursday and into Friday, because the rain continues to feed in off the North Sea on this brisk southeasterly wind. There will be some hill snow mixed in with that as well. Elsewhere, well, it may turn a little bit drier, but overall it's a cloudy night with further outbreaks of rain and drizzle and a fairly brisk wind. That all adds up to a pretty mild night, with temperatures generally staying at 5 to 7 degrees Celsius, so most places well away from a frost. Thursday then, another grey, wet day for most. Again, the rain continues to fall hard over eastern Scotland. Elsewhere, it'll tend to come and go a little more, but a pretty soggy day again for northern England. Further pulses of heavy rain, the brighter colours there for Wales, the Midlands and southern England. Perhaps a little bit drier for East Anglia at times, and the far north of Scotland also, with the wind providing a bit of shelter. Again, temperature around average, but feeling cooler with the wind and the rain.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good evening. It's me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, on State of the Nation tonight.
We will bring forward a swift 3-month consultation on further measures to keep children safe online. This will include the option of banning social media for children under 16.
The latest in a long-standing power struggle between the state and the family. Labour will now consult on a social media ban for all children under 16. Well, should it just be left to parents? I'll be joined in the studio by author and former Conservative MP Louise Mensch. Also tonight.
Harry, how confident
Good morning, Harry. How are you?
Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, continues to take on the tabloids, this time in the High Court against the Daily Mail's publisher. He says he feels like he has faced a sustained campaign of attacks because he had the temerity to stand up to them. Meanwhile, more doom and gloom for the Chancellor this morning, as unemployment remains stuck at a near 5-year high, while she reassured investors in Davos that Britain is a haven of stability in an uncertain world. As we inch towards EU levels of joblessness, does this show our problems are largely homegrown? And Britain's spy chiefs have warned they cannot wholly eliminate the risks to national security around China's new London super embassy. So why did Labour give it the go-ahead? And why are we rolling out the red carpet for a country that still imprisons British citizens for standing up for democratic rights and freedoms? One of those citizens is businessman Jimmy Lai, whose son Sebastian I will be talking to live in the studio. State of the Nation starts now. I'll also be joined by my most pugnacious panel, the former editor of The Sun, Kelvin Mackenzie, and the journalist and broadcaster, Michael Crick. As always, let me know what you think. Mailmog at gbnews.com. But now it's your favourite time of the day, the News Bulletin with Sam Francis.
Jacob, thank you, and good evening to you. Just after 8 o'clock, well, the top story tonight, the government has approved plans for a Chinese mega embassy in central London, despite intelligence chiefs warning the security risks cannot be completely eliminated. The site near the Tower of London will become the largest Chinese embassy in Europe, a move ministers say is being managed with proportionate safeguards. Security Minister Dan Jarvis says he's satisfied the risks can be appropriately managed, even though MI5 and GCHQ admit threats can't be fully removed. Critics warn the site could be used for surveillance and intimidation, but Downing Street insists embassies are still the first line of communication between nations. That as the UK pushes for closer ties with Beijing. Well, earlier today, the Conservatives' James Cleverly described the approval of this so-called mega embassy as a disgraceful act of cowardice from both the Labour government and the Prime Minister himself.
Reeks of predetermination. We have known that the Labour government wants to curry favour with the Chinese government. They are rolling out the red carpet because they're desperate for a trade deal. And this greenlighting of this huge embassy, not listening to the security concerns that many people have expressed, reeks of predetermination. And that's a Labour government who are basically willing to do whatever it takes to curry favour with the Chinese government.
Well, let's take you live now to scenes in the White House where Donald Trump is continuing to speak. That as tensions rise over Britain's decision to hand sovereignty to the Chagos Islands to Mauritius. The US president has branded that move great stupidity, calling it a national security failure and linking it directly to his push for the United States to acquire Greenland. Well, Mr. Trump has now doubled down, threatening sweeping tariffs against the UK and Europe and refusing to rule out military action over Greenland. Well, he has now been speaking for at least an hour, and journalists are still waiting to ask what many see as the key question tonight. What happens next for Greenland? And we will keep across developments for you from the White House and bring you the latest. Well, earlier today, the Conservative leader here at home, Kemi Badenoch, spoke to us this morning about the situation.
Where other countries, including the US, do things that are good for British national interest, we agree. When they don't, we disagree. On Chagos, I think he said the right thing. On Greenland, completely disagree. We need to work together, not just across the aisle with Labour, but with other countries. What is important is that the people of Greenland decide their future. This is, the Chagosians wanted to stay under British rule. The people of Greenland do not like the conversations that are taking place. And I have urged President Trump to stop this. This is not going to be good for NATO or the strategic Western alliance.
Also tonight, police have taken the rare step of publicly criticising prosecutors after their decision not to bring further charges against Lucy Letby. The former nurse is already serving 15 whole-life sentences for murdering 7 babies and attempting to kill 7 more. But the Crown Prosecution Service says the evidential test was not met for additional allegations of murder and attempted murder. Cheshire Constabulary says it expected charges, adding this is not news worth celebrating, they say, and urging respect for the families involved. And Brooklyn Beckham says he does not want to reconcile with his family in his first public comments, addressing months of speculation about a rift with his parents. In a series of Instagram posts last night, the eldest son of David and Victoria Beckham accused them of attacking him and his wife through the media, claiming they tried to ruin his marriage. After trying to keep the dispute private, he says he now felt he had no choice but to speak the truth. Those are the latest headlines for now. I'll be back with you in an hour.
Well, welcome back to State of the Nation. The government announced today that it will consult on proposals for an Australian-style ban on social media for all children under 16, affecting apps such as TikTok, Snapchat and Instagram.
We will bring forward a swift 3-month consultation on further measures to keep children safe online. This will include the option of banning social media for children under 16 and raising the digital age of consent to stop companies using children's data without their or their parents' consent. The consultation will include a range of other options too, such as whether there should be curfews overnight, breaks to stop excessive use or doom scrolling.
This is the latest in a long-standing power struggle between the overmighty state and the family, and it's important to remember that the protection of children is always the censor's excuse. Social media is not fundamentally evil. It is fundamentally good. When I look at my children's lives, if they want to speak to each other, they can do it in an instant. It's much easier than when I was their age, assuming I ever was young, having to write or ring up, bothering parents and not even getting through. Sometimes having to go through the operator. It was a much more complicated means of communicating. Of course, the ease with which young people now communicate brings some risks with it, but there are always risks in childhood. In the 19th century, people sent hate valentines, so it's not new that there should be difficult and unkind communications. It's part of life, which parents can control. Under these government plans, technology companies could also be forced to block or limit addictive features such as streaks, which encourage users to log on every day, and infinite scrolling. But once again, this can easily be resolved by parents. I can, and I do, set the hours during which my children can use their telephones and tablets. I can set time limits for individual apps, as well as in total. On some occasions, my children have asked if they could have less time because they want to concentrate on revising for exams and wanted to remove a distraction. But also on a day-to-day basis, I can adjust them. I've just extended Sixtus, so he can let Nanny watch GB News State of the Nation before I came out, and important things like that. Parents have an idea of what is in their children's interests, so I set limits on a day-to-day basis during the holidays. They may want a little more time. They want to speak to their friends a little bit later in the evening, and that's fine. It's a discussion. It's not a totalitarian regime. I wish I were the Victorian paterfamilias, but I've never managed that. I can place limits on age-related content to stop them getting stuff that's really pretty grisly. But children also grow up, and they want more independence, more freedom, more liberty, and that's the conversation with their parents, not the state, as they grow up at different rates. And what may be suitable for one 15-year-old is unsuitable for another 15-year-old. It's not something the state can deal with on an individual basis. And you can't disinvent modern technology. And what happens when they're 16 and they get thrust into this dangerous world of modern technology regardless? Well, apparently the Academy of Medical Royal Colleges has written to ministers to warn that the use of mobile phones among children has become a public health emergency, with screen time and harmful online contact having dangerous effects on their well-being. And this may be a problem for some. Of course it is. But overall, it sounds as over the top as the claims of climate emergency made by hysterical local councils. It is, in fact, a subtle way of giving the state more control, which is bad news for all of us. It's bad for parents because it takes control and responsibility from them, and it's bad for children because it stops them developing in a natural home environment. It seems to me that we don't want our children to grow up at all. We now want to wrap them in cotton wool to stop them taking any risks. But childhood is a period of growing up when proportionate risks need to be taken. As a father of 6, I think social media is a matter for parents, not the state. As always, let me know what you think, mailmog@gbnews.com. But now I'm delighted to be joined by the author and former Conservative MP, Louise Mensch, and my panel also here as well. Louise, you are a constant tweeter. I mean, you send out messages by the dozen.
I do.
And yet you don't think children should be able to read what you tweet?
Yes, I do not think they should be able to read what I tweet. Partly they'd be incredibly bored, and I don't want them to get bored. But more to the point, I don't think this is a freedom of speech issue, and I frankly think this is a rare point of difference between us, but I think you are kidding yourself when you say that parents can control this. I think most of your viewers watching it today who have children, who've got teenagers, will the struggle of keeping
but I can.
TikTok away from them.
Here we go. I go into settings.
Yes.
And I go down to screen time. And I have got Alfred, Ansel, Mary and Thomas. Your godson's over 18 now,
yes.
so I wouldn't... He never needed controlling anyway, actually.
Yes.
I can switch them all off now. I mean, they might not speak to me for a week if I did, but I can do that, and they haven't been able to work out my passcode, so they haven't been able to get through the system. And I can see how long they've been on it for as well.
Well, so far, but the little Rees-Moggs are very well behaved, and I think most teenagers up and down there are more than able to run rings around their parents to get onto social media when they couldn't be. I mean, is there good things about social media? Of course there is, but there are good things about gin and tonic as well, and I wouldn't give that to an 8-year-old either.
Well, not necessarily to an 8-year-old, but you can control the gin and tonic they give to a child. In this country, it's illegal to give drink to a child over the age of 5, and that works perfectly well. Your drink example's a good one, and parents are responsible. And they may give a child a sip of champagne at a christening, but they don't encourage their children to drink too much. It's a matter of parental control. And taking it away from parents, I think, is a false safeguard that actually people will be able to get around the state controls almost certainly more easily than their parents' controls.
I don't agree with that at all, really. Look what happened in Australia. We don't have to guess what would happen. And indeed, this will be the 11 billionth U-turn from Labour, who only a few months ago said they wouldn't take up the Australian example. But that, Jacob, they got rid of 4.7 million accounts, which is almost as many accounts as there are adolescents in Australia. It's almost a one-for-one
Yeah, and
comparison.
then they'll all be setting up accounts in false names with false ages and going on virtual private networks.
Some of them will, but really it's just a tiny amount. It's like saying there's no point in banning drugs because some people will smuggle drugs no matter what you do. That's of course true,
but it's really
banning
easy
drugs does limit the amount that come in.
With social media. But how are children supposed to communicate? Because they don't ring each other up on a landline anymore.
No.
They connect through Snapchat.
Well, they could still send each other a text, I believe, and before social media, which was only ubiquitous a few years ago. I remember when I started on Twitter, it was 2009 when the platform was invented. Before that, how did young people amuse themselves? How did they communicate? They texted, they did emojis, and that's what they will go back to.
But there's a better system, and with Snapchat, they can see where their friends are. So if their friends are nearby, they can say, well, why didn't you come and join me to do whatever they're going to do? That it increases social interaction by convenience, and you're taking that away.
I think it does exactly the opposite. It increases parasocial interaction, and one hates to trot out statistics, lies down lies and statistics, but in preparation for this segment, I had a look at a couple of meta-studies that have been reviewed. One of them out in 2023 went through 80 schools in England, and they asked teenagers that use social media, which, by the way, was almost all of them, how often they used it, and they correlated it with self-reported depression and anxiety. And it was absolutely axiomatic that the more teenagers used social media, the more depressed, the more anxious they became.
But you know perfectly well that coincidence is not causality. There are all sorts of other things that have been going on. You've had the lockdown because of COVID, which meant that children weren't interacting with each other, were staying at home, which without social media, they'd have had no form of connection with their friends. It would have been a worse mental health problem.
I think COVID is an interesting example because, yes, you had to have connection and you had Zoom schools and so forth, and you might make exceptions for exceptional circumstances like an entire lockdown or a pandemic, which hopefully we will never see again in our lifetimes. But although you say correlation is not causation, that is logically true. Nonetheless, I think it beggars belief to say the more you use social media, the higher the rates of depression. And by the way, it's much worse for girls who look at beautiful girls, beautiful models on Instagram. They compare themselves and they feel terrible.
That's been true about girls looking at glossy magazines. That side of things is not going to be taken away. That's just a different means of transmitting the same thing.
But it's in their faces, Jacob, all the time. Every parent watching this knows it.